Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about a role-playing game that was gifted to me by the gentleman. The Xro Dinn Chronicles. This is the second book, New Horizons, and which is a hardcover, oddly enough, whereas the first book, the Xro Dinn Chronicles Book 1, Awakenings, is a softcover. I find that very strange. Normally, it's a hardcover the first time, and then the softcover is for supplements. But okay, whatever floats your boat. Now, this came out in 2001. The hardcover second volume came out in 2004. It's a 3-year gap. Remember that. Now, if you look at the way this is laid out, the artwork style on the cover, the way this text is set up, the way the title is set up, where the name placement is, the font, the coloration. If you notice all of this, this book cover looks a whole lot like a Riff's book. That would be because, in my opinion, Matthew Webster, the author of this tome, wants his game to be Riff's so bad he can taste it. But, Riff's has a reputation, or all Palladium games have a reputation for bad editing, poor layout, questionable art, and horrible rules. And Riff's makes this thing look bad. Riff's is the Encyclopedia Britannica compared to this thing. This game right here is not good. Now, what is this? It's a space opera style game. Okay, maybe not space opera, more hard science fiction kind of sort of thing, because they have space aliens and things. It's not quite as swooping as Flash Gordon or something like that, or Star Wars. And you've got 5 races. Terrans are 1, 4 aliens. 5th race is the Xro Dinn themselves, which are this ancient race, which are known for being a little odd because they dump members of their race into other cultures, and they are raised there as children to become adapted to the culture and to learn about it. Now, obviously, if you've got more than 3 or 4 brain cells, they're doing this to garner information for their own personal use. It's intel work, plain and simple. They're open about it. They're honest about the fact that they're doing this, but that's what they're doing. Now, someone asked me when I originally showed this in the video, or the unboxing I did, asked me if it was a die 20 based system. Now, it's not D20 OGL, but the main mechanic is, in fact, a D20 system. You roll a D20, add skill, add relative and bonus from your stat, hit a target number. Say if it's your combat, you're trying to overcome your target's armor class or something like that. If your target wants to resist, they roll higher than that number with their dodge or parry or something like that. Now, how many successes you have over that target number determine damage, or in the case of a skill, how successful you are at the skill. So if you were like within 5 points of the target number, it's a multiplier of 1. It's a base success. Base damage or base success for the skill. Say base heal. Your base number of hit points you've healed. If you do over 5, but less than 11, 2 times. And every 5 points above that, 3, 4, 5. You get the point. Now, that resistance roll I missed could knock down those multiple factors. Those factors, called a factor shift, could knock them down, making the damage less injurious to the target in question. And there are also things in here which allow you to do, for example, you might be attacking something that's got really heavy armor, and it may have a factor shift, so that even though you hit the thing, it bumps your multiplier down by 2. So you may have gotten a 5, but because it's got really heavy armor, you're actually only going to get a 3. And there are situations where it works the other way, where you may have rolled a 2, but because things are very favorable to you, you're using a lightsaber against a naked guy, you may actually be doing a multiplier of 4 or 5. So it works both ways. So the core mechanic is in of itself not horrible. And that's where the pleasant things I'm going to say about this game end. First thing I noticed, I didn't like the artwork. it isn't very good. Now, the next thing I noticed, I like timelines. I think timelines are cool. This thing has a 4-page timeline full of details that just kind of wash over you. They're so overwhelming. Next thing I noticed, this thing has alphabet soup for alien names. I mean, there are so many weird names in here. Okay, let me just get. Okay, the Midarian. That's the most normal one other than humans. Then we have the Pajanji. P-J-A-N-J-I. Okay, weird, not horrible. Not too horrible. Then we have the Quizbenk. Q-U-I-I-Z-B-E-N-Q-Q. Then we have the Selmna. S-E-H-L-M-N-A. And then, of course, the Terrans. Now, each of these races, I thought, okay, alien races, cool. Let's see what they got. The first one, the Midarians. I'm reading it. The description. First of all, the illustration doesn't meet the description. The description says 6 fingers on the hands and 6 toes. The illustration shows 5 fingers on the hands and 4 toes. Not consistent. Not good. But I'm reading it, looking at the picture, and I'm like, hey, those are Star Frontier's Yazarans. Who would have known? They get ripped off. Then the next one, the Pajanji, I'm reading them, and I'm like, hey, they're kind of philosophical Ferengi. Then I'm reading the Quizbenk, which are snake people with big elongated skulls. They're Nagas, essentially. And they're Cathars. Then we get to the Selmnas, which are... I actually can't even friggin' remember what they are. I got really bored at that point. Because at page 23 of this book, I started to suspect that the author did not speak English as a first language, even though his name is Matthew Webster. This book is incoherent. It makes no sense. There are repeated references to a color chart, okay? Marvel Superheroes did color charts. Gamma World 3rd Edition did color charts. I never saw a chart in this book. And it's a black and white book. How can I have a color chart? Alright? Then they get to the Terrans. And the Terrans, they start describing them, and he describes them like you've never seen a Terran. He literally starts to describe how they speak. They blow air through a larynx. Talks about what their bodies look like. And like no one has ever seen a human for reference before. I realize you're trying to come up from the alien standpoint, but it went too far. Then he starts talking about the fact that all these different human races or sub-races are animal hybrids. And that humans, their special ability is a mutation. So apparently, all the humans are mutants. Which I thought was weird. In not a good way. But I kept forging ahead. I kept trying desperately to see if there was anything in here worth my time. Excuse me. I have a pop-up that just came up. And I couldn't. At page 80, I quit. I couldn't go any further. This is not a good game. Now, before you think I am ungrateful, I am not. In fact, I am thrilled that I have this game. It has been years since I have acquired a new bad role-playing game. Because I collect them. Censar, Spawn of Fashion, Reichstar, and of course, The World of Cinnabar. These are bad role-playing games, and this one right here is now going to be proudly shown on my shelf amongst them. And hopefully, if I actually move in the near future, we'll actually get them all in one location, because they're actually not next to each other. They need to be. So, don't buy this game. Okay? I got it as a gift, and I'm sure whatever the gentleman paid for this, he paid too much. And I am very grateful he sent it to me, because it is a wonderful example of how not to do a role-playing game. This thing's horrible. It makes no sense. I don't think anyone other than the guy who wrote it could run it. Literally. I don't see how you could play this game. So, it's kind of a fail. Now, what I find interesting is the inside front cover lists this whole long list of names of people who have worked on this project. It doesn't feel like a game that had people working on it. It feels like a one-man show. I've read one-man books before. They have a certain tone to them, a certain myopic, inbred writing style because the person never asked anyone else ever to look at it. Because I can't believe anyone that reads English ever edited this book. Okay? And one of the names in here was Eric Wujcik. Okay? He wrote this. One of the best darn role-playing games I have ever read. One of my favorite, and my favorite set of rules for creating mutant animals. I cannot believe for a heartbeat that he had anything to do with this. Maybe he is related to the guy. I don't know. I don't know how his name got in this. But I refuse to believe that Eric Wujcik ever looked at this book. Because if he had, he would have told the guy, shelve this until you do a rewrite. Because that's what this thing needs. A complete rewrite. Oh, and one of the last things, there's a stat in here in the first book. First book. It's a derived stat, so it's a secondary stat. It's psi for psionic powers. The psionic power rules weren't released until this book came out 3 years later. So you're introducing a stat that you can't use until a book. This book comes out 3 years later. I was just like, wow, that's some bad design right there, folks. I read some of these lines to my wife. I asked her, I said, does that line make any sense to you in a context of any kind? She said, no, not in the least. I said, well, congratulations. Doesn't make any sense to me, and I just read the paragraph it belongs in. Avoid this one, folks. It's not worth your time unless you are into bad role-playing games like I am. And in that case, run out right now and get a copy.